County Police has been inspecting carnival games for fairness. He's so good at it that he trains officers all over the state. But today he walked the midway with us to show what you can do to increase the odds of winning, starting with the milk bottle game.
The best way to win at that game is not throw at a downward angle. Get on your knees and throw at a straight angle.
Look close at the wall of balloons. Can you tell which ones you should aim for? It's obvious when you think about it. He says the bigger ones. Hester also says to check your darts to make sure the fins are intact. And
also that it does have a point, because there's some darts that, the points get broken off, and that's not going to pop a balloon.
Finally, Hester says just because the giant stuffed animals are prominently displayed, that doesn't mean this is what you'll get after one win. The key question to ask the operator:
how many wins would it take to win that?
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we bring you the first segment in the lessons by Glenn Hester, Carnival Cop.
This game is called 5-pin bowling. You can use 3 pins and 1 ball, or in this situation we're going to use 5 pins and 2 of these balls. Now the way this game works is that they will move the 2nd and 4th pin back like this. You have to come up here and, without crossing the foul line, roll the ball and knock down all 5 pins with the 2 balls that you get. The reason this is impossible to do is because if you look at the ball in the diameter, and if you roll it in between the first 2 pins, you'll notice that the diameter is equal to or less than the space between the pins. Now, how can they do this and win each time? It's very simple. They will be behind on the side here, not where you're supposed to be. And when they roll the ball, they use a little sleight of hand and use their pinky, and they'll knock down a couple of pins. They'll bring it up again and knock it down again. But actually what they're doing is they're using their fingers to knock it over. You, on the other hand, are not allowed to do that. You have to stay behind the line. So we'll set these up and we'll show you what it looks like from the player's point of vantage here. The player will roll the ball, try to knock down the pins. Now, they did knock a couple down. We'll even move this out of the way. But are you going to knock the rest down with the setup you got right here? I don't think so. So, the problem that you're going to find, and this is what I did one time when I went to a military base to help them inspect the games. What I had, if you want to set this up, move them in closer and have a magic marker circling it so that you can set them up on that instead of the regular setup. As you can see, it's much easier to do there, and you can always knock this second one over. This game basically is where you have to knock down 2 bottles from behind the foul line using a standard softball. There's a couple of problems with this game. One of which, if you'll notice the stitching, which is on the ball here, this hinders the path of the ball when you roll it. Second of which, the game agent will give you a couple of practice tries. There's a psychology behind that. First of all, they want to see which hand you favor. If you're left-handed, what they'll do is jut out just a little bit the bottle to your left. If you're right-handed, the bottle to your right will be jutted out just a little bit. What this is when the ball hits the bottles, the energy of the ball is absorbed in one bottle, leaving no energy to knock the other one over. How do they show it and perform it? Again, they'll be to the side behind here, whereas the player has to be over here. They'll take the ball and they'll hit it, and also using their hand to knock over both balls. Now the way it's going to work from the player's point of view, I'm right-handed, I'll be behind here. I'm going to roll the ball, and I only knock down one. Again, we'll try it. Still knock down one. It makes no difference how many times I try it, only one is going to be knocked down. Now if you want to let this game come in, have a line that actually sets the bottles up straight so that none of them are jutted forward, where the energy of the ball will be absorbed in only one bottle. Again, it's going to be difficult. Your hand will not be allowed to go beyond this red line. And that's what's basically going to happen. Personally speaking, I don't really care for this game. I don't like it, but that's up to you. This game here has been called cover the spread spot, spot to spot. They've used a couple of ways to do this. One has been cloth, where they could step on it and stretch it a bit, or they use the one that has just the red square, red circle here. You'll notice these black lines here. This was done for training purposes. If you put each of the discs just like this, using the outside perimeter, you can see that you have covered it and no red is going to be showing. But you're not allowed to have this. All you have is just the red circle, and you have to drop these discs on it. You can get as close as you want. These discs are made of magnesium zinc alloy, which means that when you drop them, they do not just drop, they will float. So when you try to drop it, even using the areas we have here to show where they need to go, as you can see, I've got some red showing there. I'm not going to be able to win on here. How do they do it? Well, first of all, the key is practice. They can do it. Or some of them may use an out of round disc, which means that the disc is just a little bit bigger to give them that extra advantage. You've only got possibly 1/100th of an inch of room for error, and that's about it, which is not a lot of room for error. The 5 outer disc here are used. It's the red spot's about 7 1/8 inches or 18 centimeters. The disc are 4 3/8 inches or 11 centimeters. You're not going to win at this game. First of all, nobody has one of these to practice, and second of which, their objective is to make sure that you lose. This next game is called Bottle Lock. Even the Carnival personnel will tell you it's a flat game, which means you cannot win. The reason being is that a bottle, and I'm keeping the labels on here instead of being clean so that you can see how the bottle is placed each time. A lot of people don't know this, but a bottle comes out of the mold naturally weighted. You have a heavy and a light side. We can zoom in, I'll show you on the bottle here. The heavy side is down right now. If I turn it around, as you can see, the bottle will roll and settle where the heavy side is. They will put it here. You will use a tine, similar to this, to where you will lift the bottle without it tipping over. And each time you do that, they will push off a penny. They have 10 pennies here. You have to do this 10 times to win. Again, let's look at the bottle here. As you can see, the heavy side is settling here. We're going to move it to where the heavy side is now on top. You'll notice that when you bring the bottle up, it will tip over simply because the heavy side is here. Again, if you want the bottle to stay on upright, the heavy side needs to be on the bottom, but if they want you to lose, they will put the heavy side up it'll tip over and you'll lose. And the way that they work this gaff is every time they push a penny off for you to win, they will set it up for you to win or lose depending on what they want. And then after you get 3 or 4 maybe, you can lose, and then it'll cost you a little bit more to play if you want to start from that point, or you can start over. But needless to say, this is a flat game. You're not going to win it. They have a similar game, which is, I'll be showing you in just a second, called the Stand Up the Bottle, or Fish Up the Bottle. But stay away from games like this, because this one right here happens to be one of the worst of the games. Ready? One of the things that you need to remember too, as you see these eye screws here, this adjusts this platform to where it's slanted a little bit so that when it does go back, it helps the bottle fall. And they can adjust this any way they want to. So when you lift it up, this side is higher than this side. Therefore, it's going to help the bottle tip over a little bit more.
Ready, man. Who's next?
Similar to the last game I showed you with the Stand Up the Bottle, this is a Fish Up the Bottle game. And again, I'm going to leave the labels on here so you can see the bottle, how it's set up. It has a heavy and a light side. It's settling on the heavy side now. The objective of this game, where you'll be using a dowel stick with a string and a ring, you have to put this over the neck of the bottle and lift it up and stand the bottle up without it tipping over. As you can see, the bottle is starting to move. Now, sometimes people can do this, and it was set up with the heavy side down so you have a chance of winning. And there you go. But when the bottle is set up to where the heavy side is on top. Watch what happens to the bottle. Sometimes it'll roll off the platform or it'll just tip completely over. And that's what happens when they set it up in a two-way game, which means that they choose for you to win or lose. With the heavy side up, you're not going to get it. It's going to start to roll and you won't have a chance of winning on it. This is a game that I do not really like. I don't allow in. What you want to do, if you want to monitor it, just make sure that the bottom of the bottle is marked to show where the heavy side is and it's down. With it down, you have an opportunity to win. It's a good game. It's legitimate. If the heavy side is up, it's not. It's now theft by deception because you have no opportunity to win. How do you decide which games you allow to be set up and played, or what we call allowed in, and not shut down and thrown out? First of all, the only game that's legitimate is those games where skill is involved. That means that using the skill of the player, they have an opportunity to win. Either solo, by themselves, or in a group game. Some of you may have been familiar with the games where you shoot the water into the clown's mouth and it blows up a balloon till it bursts. Those are group games. There are some games where chance is involved. Chance is gambling, because chance means, what they win is by chance, not by skill. As I mentioned, flat games were mentioned because flat games will flat out rob you. You have no opportunity to win. A two-way game is a game that can be run honest or crooked, depending on the game agent's desire. I mentioned chance already, and I mentioned skill. There are other games too, like I said, group. You have percentage games, and then the one that a lot of people sometimes get involved with, and that's the alibi game. The alibi game is where they give excuses as to why you're not winning. You think corrections made will enhance your chances of winning. Wrong. It's not going to happen. They're going to give you every excuse in the world why you did not win. And some of them can be as ridiculous as you didn't hold your tongue right, you didn't put more weight on your right side of your foot. Stupid things. I've heard some dumb excuses. But they're good at what they do. And if you have these crooked games that are in here, or gambling games, I can assure you they're going to win, not you. This next game happens to be knock down the bottles. It's not going to be normally this high. Normally it's going to be a little bit lower to the ground, but for production purposes for this video, we want to show you up here. Your objective is to throw one standard size softball, which is a 6.6 ounce ball, and knock down all three bottles. Sometimes they have 4 bottles. Sometimes they have a little bit more, depending on what it is, and you can use maybe 2 balls to knock them down. The whole purpose of this game is for you to throw it, knock down all 3 bottles, and you win. Is it going to happen? 99% chance it's not. The reason being, most of the bottles weigh more than 3 pounds. Now these bottles I've weighed. This is 2 pounds 13 ounces. Same for this one. And this is 2 pounds 13 ounces as well. But there's a problem with this one. Look at the base here. This is 4.5 inches wide. Nolan Ryan couldn't knock this down with his best fastball. I can guarantee you. Now people ask, is there any way to win, you know, if they're under the 3-pound weight and if they don't have the big bases? Yes, it is. A lot of people throw and they're throwing at a downward angle. That's not going to do it. The man that gave me these bottles showed me the secret to it. He got on his knees and threw straight and knocked them all down. Not these bottles, but the regular ones. Like I said, these bases are way too big, but they're under the 3-pound, limit, so it can work. But you throw straight. You don't throw at a downward angle. Are you going to be able to do it? Chances are, if you've got a good throw and you can control the ball, yes. But if you get a ball which is just cork filled, much lighter, it's not going to happen. So remember, you want to make sure that you have a 6.6 ounce softball. I know you're not going to carry a scale unless you're inspecting the place, but to weigh it. But you can feel it, and it's a normal feel of a softball compared to like this one, which it's just pure cork in there, no center. When I've gone in to do inspections, I have a little scale similar to that of that you can weigh letters and stuff on for mailing out. I'll weigh the bottles to make sure that these 3 pounds are under. I'll also weigh each of the balls to make sure they're standard 6.6 ounce softballs. Make sure again that the bases are not real wide like this. Like I said, this is 4.5 inches. There's no way you're going to knock this one over, but a standard one you will, using a straight throw rather than a downward angle. They might have some extra bottles in the back that they didn't bring out when you were doing your inspection. So you might want to make sure that you've got all the bottles that they have and there's nothing in the back. But there are ways to get around it, and if they can, they will. If you monitor it, it's good, but you can't babysit each game. It's good to run with undercover people who are familiar with methods used and a little bit of knowledge about the cheating that can go on, so that they can go and watch them. But you will have one problem if you're sitting at a place and watching them and you don't move. Somebody's going to come up to you and question, why are you there? So that's going to be a problem. So don't look, too obvious there. But try to use cursory glance to see who's winning, who's losing, and whether or not you've got a particular problem with the game. This next game, they either use a tee or a screw. What they do is they will have 3 balls set up, and depending on the rules of the game, you either have to hit the ball, the cue ball, into here, and the tee or the screw needs to remain standing, or it can fall down, depending on what their rules are. Now there's 2 ways to work this. If they want the tee to stand, they will push it further back toward these 2 balls in the back here. So when you roll the ball and hit it, it's going to remain standing. If they want it to fall down, then the tee will be placed against the first ball here so that it will be knocked down. What they do is they set it up however they want to. The player gets behind the foul line and will hit the cue ball toward it, and they can knock it down. If that's win or lose, depending on how they want you to do it. The other thing is, if the ball are set up and the tee is pushed to the back again, and they want it to remain standing so that you will lose if that's the case, that's what it'll look like. And that's because basically the balls were set up to where the tee is in the back here. So when this is hit, the energy hits these two balls, does not knock this over, as you just saw. Or if they want it to knock the tee over, then it will be closer to the first ball. To remain standing, it is between the two balls in the back, as I showed you before. This is a game that is controlled by the game agent, and like I said, depending on the rules of the game, it depends on whether or not it's going to remain standing or be knocked down. Ready? This next game is called English Pool. What they do is they put a ball in the middle here, and they'll put a 50-cent piece on top. What you have to do is hit the ball and knock the 50-cent piece out of the circle in order to win. Most of the time, when they set it and the ball is run, it's going to fall within the circle. Now there's two ways they can cheat on this to where you can win. They can offset this just a little bit, so when it's hit, it will go out, or they will use a dab of what's known as magician's wax. And they'll put it on the 50-cent piece here, so it sticks on there like that. And then when it's hit, it'll go out, and as it rolls over, and the weight of the ball, you can see the magician's wax that's stuck on there. That's one way in order to find out that they've cheated. You can see the 50-cent piece coin is set up on there, top of the ball. You hit, and it goes off. It's out of the circle. You've won. If they don't want you to win, they'll put it on here without the wax. You'll get behind the foul line, hit it, and it'll fall within the circle. This is known as English Pool. I don't recommend this game for anybody. It's very difficult to win unless they cheat for you. This next game is basically a bunch of Coca-Cola bottles, some of this, in a crate side by side. You have to throw these hard plastic rings and ring it in order to win. Is this a skill game? The way things work? No, it's a chance game, because chances are if you do ring it, it won't be on the bottle you throw it for, because it'll ricochet off and possibly go to another one. Just to give you some background, years ago I had a Carnival agent, owner, throw a few rings, and then sometimes he'd throw a bunch of them at one time. Did he make any of them? No, he didn't. I asked him which bottle he was throwing at. He said, that's not the way the game works. I said, well, then that's gambling. It's chance. You know, this is where you have to ring the bottle. If you'll look at these rings, I mean, they're hard. They don't have too much distance, if you can see that. And when it does hit, even dropping it like this, it's little bit closer to it. There we go, we got one out of that. That's because I was closer. Try it again. Again, these hard plastic rings will hit the bottle and they'll ricochet off. Personally speaking, I do not allow this in. As I mentioned, it is a chance game, gambling. How you win is by chance. The only way you could win by skill is if you could throw it to the bottle, showing which bottle you were going to ring. And if you got it, you'd win. But that's not going to happen. That's not the way the game's set up. So again, this is not a good game to have in there. This game is known as bushel basket. They also use a similar one that uses rubber balls called the tubs, and it's a plastic tub. I have painted the rim red here. The way this normally works is that rim shots don't count, because if you hit it on the rim, you have to do it over. Now I'm going to put a ball in there, which hopefully deadens the basket. When you have a second ball in there, it deadens the basket. So therefore, the original ball that you throw will stay in the basket. There's another ball that they have, and this is a cork fill ball, as I showed you earlier. A little bit lighter. And this is the darker one. You throw this one in, it falls right out, as you can hear. This is the regular ball you throw. The only way you're going to get this in is for it to hit the rim and stay in there. But it's not going to do that because that's not the rules. Rim shots do over. So if they allow rim shots, I allow the game to go in. If they don't, the game is shut down. What they'll do is they'll show you from not the point of the player, but inside the booth, how easy it is to get it in. Well, it is for them. And that's the game agent that's demonstrating it. They're throwing it here. But if you get back from the point of the player and toss the ball, it's not going to work. So make sure that you understand the rules of the game and watch how they demonstrate. They'll throw it from the side inside the booth, which is easy to do. Make them, as all game agents, demonstrate from the point of the player. This is known as the swinger. It's probably one of the biggest rip-offs at carnivals and fairs on midways throughout the United States. The game uses a bowling pin. It also uses, it might look like this, it might look different, but it's a chain that's attached to a ball that hangs directly over the center here. The bowling pin is pushed in the middle of this clothes hanger. And what the game agent will do is tell you that you must push the ball back, and it must knock the pin over on the return swing. Now, if you're familiar with Newton's third law of motion, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. When you attempt this game, what it misses on this side, it misses the same distance on the other. That's the way it works. Now, how can they do this and win? They cheat. They can either offset the pin somewhat to the right, instead of putting it in the dead center, and push this like this. And as you'll notice that it will not touch the bottle of the pin when it comes to the rear. In order to win, it has to go behind here and knock it over on the return swing. But you're not allowed to put your hand behind the foul line. So what they'll do to maybe help you out a little bit, they'll offset the pin a little bit. There we go. And that'll knock it over. But they're not going to let you win, except during practice play. When you pay to play, this is what's going to happen. For what it misses on this side, it misses on the other. For every action. This next game is called fluky ball. What they use is a square that you have to hit within the red and drop it in the basket, and you have to do it 2 times in order to win. What they'll do, if you'll watch, they'll behind the line, they'll hit, and it'll go in. The one they give you, though, will rebound, even though it's the identical ball. The reason for this in this particular game is that the gaff ball and the ungaff ball are used. And what happens is the gaff ball has cotton inside it. When you hit it, it'll go in. The ungaffed is just naturally as you buy it at a store. You hit it, it'll rebound. But with the cotton inside, this ball will always hit and go into the basket. They'll do this, they'll have the ungaffed ball in the basket, they'll give it to you, they'll switch it on you, and you'll throw it, and again, when you hit here, it'll rebound, so you've missed your 2 shots. So you pay to play again, and they'll give you the gaff ball or the ungaffed ball, depending on how they want to do it. The gaff ball in the basket, ungaffed, goes like that. It's not a game to be on the midway. In the fluky ball, as we showed you, there'll sometimes be a rail up to your waist or down by your shins. They'll tell you you can move in as close as you want. The ones I've seen have the rail on the bottom by your shins. If you've ever had occasion to push in with your shins, you'll notice the pain that you will feel. Some of the operators will wear shin guards in order to eliminate the pain that they have, and they can push as far as they need to try to get the ball over there into the basket. known as a hoopla game. What the objective of this game is for you to throw a hula hoop over this block that has an animal and a bar up here and encircle the block. In order you to win, it must be like that. Are you going to have regular sized hula hoops like this? No. The ones that they normally use are much smaller, and sometimes if you check them, you have to push them down because they scrape the sides here. A couple of problems you have, you're away a little ways, I don't know how much the distance is depending on what they want. They'll have the animal here and the rod, which will also be a deterrent to you winning. I'll get behind here and attempt to throw the regular size hula hoop over it. As you can see, it got caught. Therefore, I lose. I'll attempt it one more time, see if I can get it. Again, this and this here have hindered my shot. If you had the smaller hula hoop, it would be even worse. You wouldn't even get it over. This game here needs to have a regular size hula hoop so that it can go all the way over and not scrape. You got to have some clearance in there for it to go over in order to win. In balloon games, you have to burst the balloon in order to win. Sometimes it's burst 3 in a row, burst 1. The darts that they give you should have a point on them and should have no missing fins or fletching, as they call it. Some of the darts, like these, if you'll notice here, has no point. This one, if you open it up, you'll see what's known as split shot. This is lead that is used as weights, like fishing line. This makes the dart over or undercompensate depending on the throw of the player. In order to bust a balloon, a lot of them will have the smaller balloons that are not fully inflated. They're very difficult to do. I don't think if you shot it with a .45 caliber, it would bust the balloon. But a balloon has two sides to it. It has a translucent and a transparent. The translucent is the darker, heavier rubber. The transparent is the stretched out rubber that they use, to be able to break the balloon. There are some razzle games where they use clothespins, where you have to use a conversion chart to be able to get total in order to win. Now, if you pick a pin, is this 99 or is this 66? Is this 36 or is it 136? These are things that you have to look at. First of all, razzle games are fraudulent games. You're not going to win at it. They're the elite. There are many ways to do it. They use marbles where they add up points. Sometimes you have a little scorecard called football, and they have different things to show you about how many points you get with it. If you get 100 points, you win. Sometimes the game operator will give you half the game, which is 50 points. And it's not very good because you're going to lose. It would take you probably legitimately well over 6,000 turns to win. These are games that anyone have a point conversion chart you want to throw out because they are known as razzles.
Okay.
This is a game where you'll have ducks floating around in like a little baby pool. Sometimes they'll have the water swirling around so that the ducks are moving. In order to win the game, you have to throw one of these hoops over the duck like this and ring him. This is a winner. This is a loser. It has to go over. Now, some of the games I've seen allow you to lean into it. Some don't. It depends on the rules of the game. In order to win, the ring must go over the duck's head like this and ring his neck. If it goes like this or goes like this, that's not a winner. You want to make sure that it's all the way over. It's a fun game to do, and look at the rules and see the degree of difficulty that might be there and whether or not you'll be able to do it. Have the game operator demonstrate from the point of the player, not from inside the booth. This is a crossbow game that you'll be shooting an arrow from a crossbow, and you must get it within the diameter of this white star. If you touch any of the black, you lose. If you've looked at the diameter of the arrow, and look at the diameter here, you must get it right in the middle, otherwise you touch black, and therefore you're going to lose. How do they gaff this game? First of all, the sights are not that good. They're off. Second of which, you've got a certain distance you have to shoot from. You have wind variables because you're outside that could affect it. I have shot many a times, but I've always come very close and hit the black, regardless of how close I was. But this game right here, you have to look at the diameter of the arrow and see if it is going to make the white here to where you can win. And check the sights.
This is a chance flat game for darts. What's behind the question mark? What you win is by chance, which is gambling, unless they use a point conversion chart. This is the roll down game. Although a player may get under or over the recommended numbers, the odds of this are extremely high. Balls may hit the rails and bounce to another number. This is the shoot the star game. Now with this one, you shoot a sleeve of BBs, and they're actually split shot, not 177 calibers, so you don't get a full target hit. Also, you may not have enough BBs in the chamber to shoot out the star. This is the duck game. Everybody wins with this game. What it has is numbers on the bottoms of the duck. You pick it out of the pond, and if it's a 1, 2, or 3, sometimes nothing, you win. Sometimes you win a bigger prize than others just because the numbers are bigger. Or they can just tell you that, oh, that's a 2, so you win the small prize. Anyway, it's very compelling and always popular. The goldfish game is one of the easier games to play. It's also not rigged. You have a ring that goes over a goldfish bowl fairly easily. The biggest thing about it is that the goldfish only cost about a quarter, and the goldfish bowls are anywhere from a quarter to 60 cents a piece wholesale. So that dollar you're spending pays for the merchandise. And since it'll probably take you about 2 or 3 tries to do it, you're paying about $3 for a quarter goldfish. Glenn has only seen this game once on the Midway, but he was able to win one time on the 3rd try. Player rolls a ball up and on an incline, and the ball goes into a valley. If the ball leaves the valley, player loses. If it stays in the valley, the player wins. As mentioned, Glenn did not win, except for his 3rd attempt. After 2 attempts, he found that the right amount of force needed to get it over the incline into the valley and come to a rest there was just about pushing it. He tried a 4th attempt, but did not have the right amount of energy to keep it in the valley. You got to watch the legs on the game and use a level to measure it to make sure it is truly level, and if one side, front or back, is favored. Some may tell you that it sank in the dirt and that is why it's not level. They'll make any excuse. You can encounter other games that have not been mentioned in these chapters. I strongly suggest you obtaining the recommended books mentioned and to further your education on these games. This is the block game, and it's a very simple procedure, it looks like, to place a ring over the block, especially at a distance, but the rings may be just too small to fit around the block shown, or maybe an exact fit, which means that you have to stand directly over the block in order to get them on and make them fit tightly to win. This is what's known as a flat game. It's add 'em up darts. Use a point conversion chart to add up your score. A point conversion chart, whatever total you get, is converted on this chart. This shows designators. It's numbers or letters in the bottom of cups. They don't mean anything except when the flat owner tells you what they mean. So designators are shown in the cups and don't allow you to know which prize you will win. The pitch till you win game looks like a game of skill, but it's not. First of all, the rings don't quite go over the blocks easily unless you're directly above it. The rings have to rebound back to encircle the blocks. Most will pitch till they ring a peg. Prizes attached to the blocks will cause problems as well. Unless blocks are turned around with the point facing the player, it is almost impossible to do. This is the float pitch game. Some operators may use different rules to play the games, but the player has to toss ping pong balls into floating dishes. The ball will ricochet ricochet out and may or may not land in another dish. The wind variables are also part of the problem with this chance game. This is the long-range basketball game. The balls are overinflated, giving them more bounce, so when they hit the rim, they bounce off. Rims may be oval-shaped, and it makes it harder for the ball to pass through. This is the cat rack game. Cats on tiers have fur around them, giving it the illusion that it is bigger than it really is. Some are placed in runners, which may jam. This keeps them from falling over. Other versions have a wire to help reset them, but may also keep them from falling over. Other games use an extra shelf to keep the cats from falling all the way over or off the shelf. Balls should be regulation size and weight. The coin pitch game looks harmless enough. The coins will slide on this game. Since the player has no control after the pitch, consider this a game of chance. The object is to take a coin, toss it on the flat board, which is very slippery, and have it land in the black square.
No, I'm just gonna look around.
Most carnivals will allow this game in, even though there's really no point to it. The man can guess your weight, your birthday, anything he likes to guess, the color of your hair, and if he's wrong, you get a prize, and the prize is worth about half of what you just paid him. If he's right, you lose.